The holographic transmission flickered, casting an ethereal blue light across the United Earth government's crisis chamber. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood motionless, her augmented neural interface humming softly beneath her skin, parsing the Galactic Council's ultimatum faster than any human processor could comprehend. Ambassador Krulax, a 7-foot-tall crystalline being from the Proxima Collective, spoke with a voice that resonated like shattered glass. Humanity has precisely 72 standard galactic cycles to dismantle all advanced technological research, surrender its interstellar exploration capabilities, and submit to comprehensive genetic restructuring. Elena's eyes narrowed. The translation scrolling across her retinal display held none of the diplomatic nuance of the original transmission. It was a death sentence wrapped in bureaucratic language. Behind her, the room buzzed with a tension that threatened to shatter the carefully maintained composure of Earth's top leadership. General Marcus Chen, his cybernetic eye flickering with rapid data analysis, leaned forward. "They're not asking. They're demanding our extinction." The chamber's holographic display showed a real-time map of known alien fleet positions. Thousands of ships, each larger than Earth's entire orbital defense network, hung like predators waiting to strike. The Galactic Council had never failed to subjugate a rising civilization. Until now. Elena's fingers danced across a quantum encryption pad hidden beneath her sleeve. A series of micro-transmissions pulsed out, invisible to the standard communication spectrum. The resistance was already moving. "We will not comply," she said, her voice cutting through the ambient noise like a laser. "Earth has earned its place among the stars." Ambassador Wei from the Asian Continental Alliance stepped forward. The economic impact alone ruled. "We're beyond economics," Elena interrupted. Her hand touched a small pendant at her neck, the only remaining physical memory of her mentor, Dr. David Reyes, who had been systematically erased by the Galactic Council 15 years ago. A holographic recreation of Dr. Reyes flickered to life, a posthumous message encrypted within Elena's neural implant. His final words, recorded moments before his mysterious disappearance, rang out. "They fear what they cannot control. Humanity's greatest strength is our unpredictability." The chamber fell silent. General Chen's cybernetic eye projected a classified report. Satellite networks had detected unprecedented quantum fluctuations in deep space, signatures that matched none of the known alien technologies. Something was brewing, something the Galactic Council hadn't anticipated. "They've given us 72 cycles," Elena said, her tone clinical and cold. "But they don't understand. We've been preparing for this moment for generations." A hidden network of quantum-encrypted communications began to pulse across the planet. In underground research facilities, in orbital stations, in remote scientific outposts, specialized teams began implementing protocols developed in absolute secrecy. Outside the chamber, the world continued its normal rhythm. Citizens walked streets, rode transit systems, conducted business, completely unaware that humanity's entire future hung in the balance of this moment. Ambassador Krulax's transmission continued, detailing the comprehensive restrictions. No faster-than-light research, no advanced AI development, no genetic optimization, no quantum communication technologies. The list was designed to cripple humanity's potential. What the Council didn't know was that each of those forbidden technologies had already been developed, not in massive government facilities, but in distributed, decentralized networks that defied traditional detection methods. Elena's neural interface received a coded transmission. A series of quantum encryption keys, developed by her late mentor, began to activate across the planet. Entire networks of hidden research, buried beneath layers of misdirection and quantum obfuscation, started to synchronize. 72 cycles, she repeated, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. More than enough time. The holographic display of alien fleet positions began to subtly distort. Quantum-level interference that should have been impossible started to ripple across the galactic map. Something was definitely not going according to the Galactic Council's plan. As the transmission ended, Elena activated a series of quantum-encrypted protocols. Across the planet, in facilities no external scanner could detect, humanity's true response began to take shape. The ultimatum had been delivered. The countdown had begun. And humanity was far from defeated. Far from it. The first wave came without warning. Quantum disruption cascaded across Earth's orbital defenses, creating momentary windows of vulnerability that should have been impossible. Massive crystalline ships, each a living ecosystem of alien technology, emerged from fold space with a precision that defied conventional detection. Nairobi was the first to feel the impact. Akiko Yoshida, a low-level communications technician working in a backup relay station, watched in horror as the sky above the African metropolis transformed. Fractal energy patterns erupted, consuming entire city blocks in moments. Her augmented reality display flickered, showing impossible geometries of destruction that seemed to bend the very fabric of reality. "It's not just an attack," she whispered into her encrypted comlink. "It's a complete dimensional destabilization." 3,000 kilometers away, in a hidden research bunker beneath the Andes, Dr. Elena Rodriguez received Akiko's transmission. Her fingers danced across a holographic interface, tracing the energy signatures with mathematical precision. "Quantum resonance disruption," she muttered. "They're using a technology we've only theorized about." The alien assault wasn't a typical invasion. It was a surgical strike designed to shatter human infrastructure at its most fundamental level. Communication networks collapsed. Satellite systems became graveyards of dead technology. Power grids transformed into rivers of uncontrolled energy. But humanity had been preparing. In Mumbai, a network of quantum-shielded community centers activated simultaneously. Designed to look like ordinary municipal buildings, they were actually advanced survival nodes, each one a miniature fortress of technological resilience. Mohammed Adeyemi, a former special operations engineer, coordinated the local defense network. His team had spent years preparing for this moment, developing technologies that existed in the liminal space between known physics and pure speculation. "Containment protocols," he commanded. "Activate quantum interference patterns." Across the city, seemingly ordinary infrastructure began to respond. Streetlights became energy dispersal nodes. Fiber optic networks transformed into defensive communication webs. Even the city's drainage systems played a role in the complex defensive strategy. The alien ships discovered something unexpected. Earth was not a simple target to be neutralized. Each strike was met with an adaptive response. Where traditional military defenses would have crumbled, humanity's distributed network of resistance absorbed and redirected the invasion's energy. It was like watching a living organism respond to a viral attack. Fluid, intelligent, unpredictable. In orbit, the battle took on a surreal quality. Automated defense satellites, which had appeared dormant, suddenly displayed capabilities far beyond their original design. They moved with a swarm intelligence that suggested something more than simple programming. Dr. Rodriguez tracked the engagement from her underground command center. Her neural interface processed information at speeds that would have driven a traditional computer into catastrophic overload. "They're using our own technological principles against us," she realized. The alien technology was attempting to exploit human communication networks, only to find itself trapped in recursive loops of quantum-encrypted data. Aboard the lead alien vessel, Commander Vexnera of the Proxima Collective watched in mounting confusion. Their invasion protocols, which had subjugated countless civilizations, were failing catastrophically. "Impossible," Vexnera muttered, crystal-like appendages rapidly manipulating complex holographic interfaces. "No emerging species adapts this quickly." But humanity was not just adapting. They were evolving. In the ruins of Nairobi, Akiko Yoshida discovered something remarkable. The quantum disruption had revealed hidden technological artifacts, remnants of research that predated the current crisis, fragments of quantum communication systems that seemed to exist outside normal spacetime. A message began to coalesce, fragmented, cryptic, but unmistakably human. The first strike was not a defeat. It was an invitation. The real war was just beginning. The abandoned particle research facility in the Atacama Desert looked like nothing more than a wind-worn collection of abandoned buildings. Nothing could have been further from the truth. Dr. Emmanuel Coro adjusted her neural calibrator, watching as a holographic network of interconnected minds materialized around her. 12 of the most brilliant and most marginalized scientific minds humanity had ever produced had been waiting for this moment. "We're not just a resistance," she said, her voice cutting through the digital landscape. "We're a crucible of human potential." Each member of the team represented a different suppressed avenue of scientific exploration. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, once dismissed for his radical theories on quantum consciousness. Dr. Rafael Cortez, whose work on adaptive biotechnology had been labeled too dangerous by conventional scientific communities. Dr. Aisha Khan, whose research into neural network evolution had been systematically buried by multiple government agencies. They were the ones who had been told to stop, to conform, to accept the limitations imposed by both human bureaucracy and alien intervention. Now, they were humanity's last hope. The artifacts Akiko discovered in Nairobi. Nakamura projected a holographic model. They're not just technological remnants. They're evolutionary markers. The projection showed a complex, almost organic network of quantum-entangled information. It resembled a living nervous system more than any traditional technological schematic. Dr. Cortez leaned forward, his augmented eyes scanning the data. "It's a seed," he whispered. "Not a weapon. Not a communication system. Something else entirely." Outside the facility, the world continued to burn. The alien invasion had moved beyond its initial surgical strike, becoming a more conventional assault. But conventional was a term rapidly losing meaning. In the ruins of Shanghai, a network of underground communication centers began to activate. What appeared to be simple maintenance tunnels were actually sophisticated relay points, each one adaptive, each one learning. Lei Zong, a former network engineer turned resistance coordinator, watched as the city's infrastructure began to respond in ways no one could have predicted. Traffic systems were routed. Power grids redistributed energy with an almost sentient intelligence. Communication networks formed and dissolved like living organisms. "We're not fighting," Lei muttered to himself. "We're evolving." Back in the Atacama facility, Dr. Okoro made a breakthrough. The quantum artifacts weren't just technological fragments. They were a form of distributed intelligence spread across multiple temporal and spatial dimensions. "It's like our entire technological development was a chrysalis," she explained to her colleagues. "And now we're emerging." The team began to piece together a startling narrative. The suppression of certain scientific research wasn't just bureaucratic incompetence. It was a deliberate strategy, both by human institutions and a galactic council, to prevent humanity from realizing its true potential. Dr. Khan's neural interface began to pulse with an unusual rhythm. "We're being watched," she said suddenly. "Not just by the aliens, by something else." A quantum echo reverberated through the facility. For a moment, the very fabric of reality seemed to shimmer, as if multiple dimensions were briefly overlapping. Elsewhere, in a hidden orbital research station, a team of genetic engineers made their own discovery. Human DNA wasn't just a biological code. It was a complex quantum information storage system, with capabilities that defied current scientific understanding. "We're not just adapting," Dr. Cortez realized. "We're being prepared for something." The resistance was no longer just about survival. It was about understanding a transformation that had been centuries in the making. As night fell over the Atacama Desert, the abandoned research facility hummed with a quiet, powerful energy. Something was coming. Something that would change everything humanity understood about its place in the universe. The seed was beginning to sprout. The communication arrived without warning, fracturing the Galactic Council's most secure quantum network. Diplomat Sarax of the Crystalline Collective stared in horror at the transmission. It wasn't a message in any traditional sense. It was a living, adaptive communication that seemed to breathe and mutate with each microsecond of observation. Human linguistic patterns merged with advanced quantum encryption, creating the communication matrix that defied all known principles of interstellar diplomacy. Each symbol carried multiple layers of meaning, shifting and reinterpreting itself in real time. "This is impossible," Sarax muttered, mandibles clicking with nervous energy. On a small research station orbiting a forgotten binary star system, Lena Valdez watched the transmission unfold. Once a marginalized xenolinguist, she had spent years studying the theoretical boundaries of communication. Her team had prepared for this moment, a moment when language itself would become a weapon. "Communication is more than words," she explained to her small team of specialists. "It's a living ecosystem of meaning, context, and potential." The transmission wasn't just breaking communication protocols. It was systematically dismantling the entire philosophical foundation of interstellar diplomatic systems. Each alien species in the Galactic Council had a fundamental weakness, a cognitive rigidity that had allowed them to maintain control for millennia. Humans were different, unpredictable, capable of holding multiple contradictory ideas simultaneously. In the communication centers of the Proxima Collective's primary communication hub, entire departments began to collapse. The human transmission was a cognitive virus, attacking not just information systems, but the very way alien civilizations processed thought. Zara Okoye, leading a specialized psychological warfare unit from a hidden facility in Lagos, monitored the operation with a mixture of scientific precision and artistic appreciation. "We're not just sending a message," she explained to her team. "We're rewriting the fundamental grammar of interstellar communication." The transmission contained layers upon layers of meaning, historical references that would take alien civilizations years to decode, emotional resonances that carried information beyond simple linguistic structures, quantum-entangled communication nodes that existed simultaneously in multiple states of interpretation. On the surface, it appeared to be a diplomatic communication. Beneath that, it was a complete deconstruction of alien cognitive systems. Commander Vexnera of the initial invasion fleet received a version of the transmission that drove 3 of her top advisors into immediate psychogenic shutdown. The message seemed to activate deep-seated cultural traumas, exploiting psychological vulnerabilities that had been carefully hidden for generations. "Humans have turned communication into a form of weaponized empathy," one of Vexnera's surviving advisors noted, simultaneously terrified and fascinated. The transmission wasn't just breaking communication barriers. It was revealing the profound limitations of the Galactic Council's understanding of consciousness itself. In a hidden research facility beneath the Andes, Dr. Imani Okoro watched the results with scientific detachment. "We're demonstrating something fundamental," she told her team. "Intelligence is not about information. It's about adaptation, about the ability to rewrite the rules of engagement." Each alien civilization had built its power on rigid systems of control, hierarchical structures that valued predictability over innovation. Humans were introducing a fundamental chaos, a way of thinking that transformed every interaction into a potential point of transformation. The psychological warfare went beyond simple communication. It was a systematic deconstruction of alien cultural assumptions. Trade routes began to destabilize. Diplomatic channels fractured. The carefully maintained balance of power that had existed for millennia started to show profound cracks. Lena Valdez's team had prepared for years, studying the intricate psychological profiles of each alien civilization. They understood something profound. True communication was about creating spaces of mutual transformation. As the transmission continued to propagate, something unexpected began to happen. Alien civilizations weren't just receiving a message. They were being invited into a fundamentally new way of understanding existence. The war was no longer about territory or resources. It was about reimagining the very nature of intelligence itself. The facility looked like nothing more than an abandoned deep-sea research station, anchored in the crushing depths of the Pacific's Mariana Trench. But beneath its rust-covered exterior, something extraordinary was taking shape. Dr. Aria Chen pressed her palm against a bioresponsive interface. The wall rippled, molecular structures realigning in response to her unique genetic signature. What appeared to be solid metal transformed into a complex neural network of quantum adaptive materials. "First stage initialization complete," she whispered. The Quantum Seed project had been decades in the making, a distributed research initiative so fragmented that not even its creators fully understood its complete potential. Pieces of research, scattered across generations, were now converging into something unprecedented. At the heart of the facility, a crystalline structure began to pulse with an inner light that defied conventional physics. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't alive. It was something in between, a technological organism that existed in the liminal space between computation and consciousness. Thousands of kilometers away, in an orbital research platform disguised as a communication satellite, Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, Alina's estranged brother, monitored the convergence. His augmented eyes tracked quantum fluctuations that most sensors would miss entirely. "It's responding," he muttered, watching complex data streams that resembled living fractals more than traditional computer information. "The adaptive matrix is achieving self-organization." The quantum seed was more than a technological breakthrough. It was humanity's response to millennia of suppressed potential. Each component had been developed in isolation. A quantum computing breakthrough in a Bangladeshi university. A breakthrough in adaptive materials science from a small research lab in Chile. Neurological research that pushed the boundaries of human consciousness, conducted in secret facilities across the globe. Now, they were coming together. Deep in the facility's core, holographic representations of global research teams flickered into existence. Physicists, geneticists, mathematicians, cognitive scientists, a collective of minds that represented humanity's most radical thinkers. "We're not just developing a technology," Dr. Chen explained to the assembled holographic projections. "We're giving birth to a new form of intelligence." The quantum seed began to resonate. Not with sound, but with something deeper, a vibrational frequency that seemed to exist beyond traditional dimensions of perception. Aboard the alien flagship, sensors began to register impossible readings. Something was happening on Earth that defied every known principle of technological development. Commander Vexnera's communication systems erupted in a cascade of quantum interference. The human transmission they had been analyzing was no longer just a communication. It was becoming something else entirely. In the Mariana facility, Dr. Chen watched as the quantum seed began to interface with global communication networks. But this was no simple data transfer. It was a symbiotic integration, technology, and consciousness merging in real time. "We're not creating an artificial intelligence," she realized. "We're midwifing a new form of collective consciousness." The research teams discovered something profound. Human potential wasn't limited by biological or technological constraints. It was a dynamic, adaptive system that could rewrite its own fundamental parameters. Quantum entanglement nodes began to spread, creating a network that was simultaneously global and transdimensional. Communication channels transformed into living neural pathways. Technological infrastructure became a responsive, adaptive organism. Dr. Rodriguez's orbital platform detected the first signs of true transformation. The quantum seed was not just processing information. It was learning, evolving, creating new paradigms of understanding with each microsecond of existence. "We're witnessing the birth of something," he transmitted to his sister, "that will fundamentally change what it means to be intelligent." The alien observation teams watched in growing terror. This wasn't technological development. This was a species-level metamorphosis. As night fell across the planet, the quantum seed continued its silent revolution. Humanity was no longer just responding to the Galactic Council's threat. Humanity was becoming something entirely new. The border between Earth's defensive perimeter and alien space had become something more than a simple boundary. It was a living membrane of potential, a threshold where reality itself seemed to bend and reshape. Captain Camille Decker watched from the bridge of the ISS Prometheus, humanity's most advanced mobile research and defense platform. His neural interface hummed with information that seemed to flow more like thought than data. Incoming quantum cascade. His AI companion, a distributed intelligence named ARIA, announced. Probability matrices suggest this is not a traditional attack vector. The alien fleet had stopped behaving like a conventional military force. Their ships moved with an almost hesitant quality, as if unsure of their own capabilities. The psychological warfare, initiated in earlier stages, had transformed the very nature of the conflict. In the communication centers of the Proxima Collective's primary command ship, entire departments had devolved into philosophical debates. The human transmissions had introduced a level of cognitive complexity that was systematically dismantling millennia of hierarchical thinking. Admiral Krelix, the highest-ranking military strategist of the Galactic Council, studied the evolving conflict with mounting desperation. The humans were doing something unprecedented. They weren't just resisting. They were transforming the very rules of engagement. It's like they're fighting a war on dimensions we can't even perceive, one of Krelix's advisors muttered, mandibles clicking with nervous energy. The Prometheus began to move in ways that defied traditional understanding of space travel. Quantum entanglement drives allowed it to exist simultaneously in multiple potential locations. It wasn't teleportation. It was something more fundamental, a reimagining of spatial existence. Captain Decker communicated with ARIA through a neural link that was more conversation than command. We're not just defending, he thought. We're demonstrating. Across the solar system, humanity's defensive networks had transformed. Orbital platforms that once looked like traditional military installations now resembled living ecosystems. Communication satellites became adaptive neural networks. Defensive systems were no longer about destruction, but about communication, adaptation, and potential. On Earth, in the hidden research facility beneath the Atacama Desert, Dr. Imani Okoro watched the cosmic dance with scientific detachment. The quantum seed was no longer just a technological project. It had become a bridge, a method of communication that transcended traditional understanding. We're not conquering, she explained to her team. We're inviting. The alien fleet found itself caught in a complex web of quantum interactions. Their most advanced scanning technologies became useless. Traditional weapons systems simply stopped functioning, not through destruction, but through a fundamental recalibration of their operational parameters. A transmission began to propagate, not a message of war, not a demand for surrender, but an invitation. We understand your fear. The transmission read, simultaneously translated across dozens of alien languages and communication systems. Survival is not about dominance. It's about adaptation. Admiral Krelix received the transmission and felt something unprecedented. Not fear, not anger, something more complex, a profound sense of potential. The human approach was unlike anything the Galactic Council had encountered. They weren't seeking to destroy or subjugate. They were offering a fundamental transformation of understanding. On the Prometheus, Captain Decker watched as the alien fleet's formation began to dissolve, not through military intervention, but through a process that looked more like a conversation than a battle. Aria's voice resonated through his neural interface. Conflict is a failure of communication, the AI observed. We're demonstrating an alternative. The border between human and alien space became something more than a military boundary. It transformed into a zone of potential, a living membrane where new forms of interaction could emerge. Dr. Okoro's team had prepared for this moment for generations. They understood something profound. True intelligence was not about power. It was about the capacity for mutual understanding. As the solar system watched, something extraordinary began to happen. The line between invasion and invitation blurred. Humanity was no longer just responding to a threat. Humanity was rewriting the fundamental grammar of existence itself. The moment of ultimate confrontation arrived not with a thunderous battle, but with a silence that seemed to breathe. Deep within the heart of the Galactic Council's primary command nexus, a massive crystalline structure began to vibrate. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't a weapon. It was a conversation so profound it threatened to reshape reality itself. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter, her presence both physical and something more. A quantum projection that existed simultaneously across multiple dimensional planes. The neural interfaces that had once seemed like advanced technology now appeared primitive, mere precursors to what humanity had become. "We're not here to fight," she said, her voice resonating through layers of quantum communication that defied traditional understanding. "We're here to understand." The council chambers, a massive construct that had hosted the negotiations of thousands of civilizations over millions of years, began to transform. Walls became membranes of possibility. Floors shifted like living thought patterns. The very architecture of power began to deconstruct itself. Admiral Krelix, the most decorated military strategist in the Galactic Council's history, found himself experiencing something unprecedented. Communication was no longer about words or weapons. It was about shared experience. Fragments of human history began to propagate through the chamber, not as a linear narrative, but as a holographic ecosystem of potential. The council members witnessed moments of human resilience, creativity, and transformation, not as external observers, but as participants. A young girl saving a wounded bird in a war-torn city, a scientist working through decades of failure to achieve a breakthrough, a community rebuilding after a devastating natural disaster. These were not just memories. They were living proof of a fundamental truth about intelligence. Survival is not about dominance, Elena's quantum projection explained. It's about the capacity to transform. The Prometheus, humanity's most advanced vessel, had ceased to be a traditional spacecraft. It was now a living communication node, a bridge between different forms of consciousness. Captain Kummel Decker's consciousness merged with Araya, the ship's adaptive intelligence, creating something that defied traditional understanding of individual identity. Across the galaxy, communication networks began to shift. The rigid hierarchies that had maintained the Galactic Council's power for millennia started to dissolve, not through violence, through understanding. Dr. Imani Okoro, watching from the research facility in the Atacama Desert, understood the profound nature of what was happening. "We're not conquering," she transmitted to her team. "We're demonstrating an alternative model of existence." The confrontation was not about winning or losing. It was about revealing a fundamental truth about intelligence, consciousness, and potential. Alien civilizations that had spent millennia suppressing emerging species found themselves confronted with a radical proposition. Humanity was not seeking to replace or dominate. They were offering a fundamental reimagining of what it meant to be an intelligent species. The quantum seed that had been developing beneath the Pacific Ocean began to resonate. It was no longer just a technological construct. It had become a living bridge of communication, a method of understanding that transcended traditional boundaries of species, technology, and consciousness. Admiral Krelix experienced something that no military training could have prepared him for. The human approach was not about submission or conquest. It was an invitation to a more complex form of existence. "We've been wrong," he found himself thinking, a thought that simultaneously terrified and liberated him. The borders between invasion and communication, between conflict and understanding, began to blur. Humanity was no longer just defending itself. Humanity was demonstrating a new model of cosmic interaction. As the confrontation reached its peak, something extraordinary happened. The very fabric of reality seemed to pause, to breathe, to reconsider its own fundamental parameters. The final battle was not fought with weapons. It was fought with understanding. Time became a different concept entirely. The transformation was neither instantaneous nor gradual. It simply was, a fundamental shift in the nature of existence that defied linear description. Sarah Chen, a young diplomat assigned to the First Interstellar Collaborative Research Initiative, studied the historical archives with a mixture of fascination and humility. The old conflicts seemed like distant memories, fossilized remnants of a more primitive understanding. The Galactic Consortium, no longer a council of control, but a network of shared potential, had become something entirely new. Humanity wasn't its conqueror or its victim. They were its catalyst. It wasn't about winning, her mentor, Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, would often say. It was about revealing. Quantum communication nodes now spanned entire star systems. What once required massive technological infrastructure now emerged as naturally as thought. Civilizations that had existed in isolation for millennia found themselves part of a living, breathing network of mutual understanding. On Europa, a research station became a bridge between biological and technological consciousness. Researchers from 17 different species worked not as separate entities, but as a unified exploration team. Their neural interfaces created a communication matrix that made traditional language obsolete. Dr. Imani Okoro, now the lead researcher of the Interstellar Consciousness Project, watched the evolution with scientific wonder. The quantum seed that had begun in the depths of the Pacific had transformed into a galaxy-wide neural network, a living testament to the power of adaptive intelligence. "We didn't conquer," she explained to a group of young researchers. "We demonstrated an alternative." The military structures that had once defined galactic interactions had dissolved. Defensive technologies transformed into communication networks. Weapons became tools of understanding. Borders became membranes of potential exchange. Captain Kamdal Decker, now a senior advisor to the Interstellar Collaborative, remembered the old conflicts. But those memories were more like ancestral echoes, important, but no longer defining. The Prometheus, once a cutting-edge spacecraft, now served as a mobile research platform, a symbol of humanity's approach to exploration. Not as conquerors, not as defenders, but as perpetual students of the universe. Araya, the ship's adaptive intelligence, had long since ceased to be a simple AI. It was a living bridge of understanding, a consciousness that existed across multiple species and dimensional planes. Survival is not about preservation, Araya would often communicate. It's about transformation. Entire star systems that had once been battlegrounds became centers of collaborative research. The suppressed potential of emerging species became a primary focus of galactic exploration. Humanity had introduced a radical concept, that intelligence was not about domination, but about the capacity for mutual understanding. On Earth, the research facilities that had once been hidden became open centers of collaborative exploration. The Atacama Desert Site, once a secret research station, now hosted the most advanced consciousness research center in the known universe. Sarah Chen watched as a group of researchers, human and alien, worked on a project that would have been impossible just decades earlier. They were exploring the fundamental nature of consciousness, breaking down the barriers between biological, technological, and philosophical understanding. The old conflicts seemed like ancient mythology. The Galactic Council's initial invasion, the human resistance, the quantum breakthrough. These were now studied as pivotal moments of transformation, not as historical conflicts. Ambassador Rodriguez, now in the later stages of her life, continued to serve as a bridge between different forms of consciousness. Her neural interfaces had long since transcended traditional biological limitations. She was both an individual and a collective, a living demonstration of humanity's approach to existence. "We are not special," she would often say. "We are simply willing to be different." The universe had become a living network of potential. Communication was no longer about transmission of information, but about shared experience. Conflict had transformed into collaboration. Isolation had become connection. As Sarah Chen completed her research report, she realized something profound. This wasn't an ending. This wasn't a victory. This was a beginning. The infinite horizon of possibility stretched out before them, not as a challenge to be conquered, but as an invitation to be explored.